cameras are up. Okay. So I had a request to teach Here Comes the Sun, and the person that requested it hasn't showed up several times, but that's okay. It's a great song for teaching because it has a lot of the basic chords, and we can make it like a background project for some ongoing lessons. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of review some of the chords. I'm going to share my screen. The chords for Here Comes the Sun. First of all, it's in the key of D, if that means anything to you, but it's basically means that we're using the D chord quite a bit. And then if we count up from D to 4 letters up, D, E, F, G, it's got a G chord in it, and then it has an A chord in it. So it has what we call the 1, 4, 5. So those are the main chords in the song. But it starts using other chords as well. When we get into the chorus, we see an E7 chord being used. And when we get into, I'd call it the bridge, we see the key of C being used. There's an F, C, and a G. So lots of chords, but they're not, bar chords. They're chords we've seen before. And so it's a great review of chords. And we can also learn about some new chords as well. I see where I made a mistake on my site. So we're going to be using, I would think of as an easier version of A. We're going to use what's called A7. And we've used this before, where we have just 2 fingers instead of 3, and they're on the second frets of the D and B strings. And we have what might sound as more complicated, but it's actually easier to play. And I don't have it on the screen right now. But it's called an Dsus2, and all we do is we lift our middle finger. And we just have 1 finger on the guitar. But when we lift our finger, we don't move it all. We move it out of the way because when we play an Dsus2, we're going to put our finger back down quickly to play an A7 again. So a lot of times when we play an Dsus2, we're usually doing a quick movement. We take our finger off and then we put it back on. All right. So go ahead and give that a try. Play an A7, and then when you strum down, you play the A7. But as you're strumming up, take your finger off to play the Dsus2, and then strum back down with the A7 again. All right. All right, so that's an Dsus2 in combination with an A7. So another type of chord, which is related, is called an Dsus4. First of all, why we call the other one an Dsus2? We're doing, when we make that change, when we take our middle finger off, we're letting the B string come in. B is the second note of the key, the scale of A, B. And so we're adding that second note into the chord. And when we take off our finger, we're also removing the third note, the C sharp, A, B, C sharp. And so we're suspending the third note to bring in the second. That's why we call it an Dsus2. We're taking out the third and replacing it with the second. The next chord we're going to do, I wanted to explain the Dsus because we're creating a new chord called Dsus4. And we're just doing a similar thing where we're making a change on the B string. So we're keeping the A7 in place because we're going to just quickly go into the 4 and come back out of it. And so this is, we take our ring finger and we put it onto the 3rd fret of the D string, a B string, sorry. It's a D note, that's why I thought of that. So we're putting it on the 3rd fret of the B string. We're creating a D note, which is the 4th note of the A scale. And we come off the B string to get back to the A7. All right? So this is used in the song, these 3 chords. And when we play it, we we try to not hit the E string. I guess you could hit it. At the very end, you try to hit the E string almost by itself, or you take your ring finger off at the very least. So we're back to the beginning of the A7. We're gonna first go to the Sus2. We'll go back to the first one we tried. So we have the A7, strum down, take your middle finger off, strum up, put your middle finger back down. Then as you're strumming up, you want to do an A-sus4. And now we're going to strum back down. We're not going to strum, though. We're going to move our hand down, getting ready to strum up. And so this is like a non-strum coming down. So it's, and so it's kind of, in slow motion. What we're doing is we're taking our hand and bringing it back down without strumming. Take your ring finger off and just catch that E string. Make sure you get a nice clean sound on the E string. So it's going to, in combination, is there it is. So you want to get that E almost by itself, and I think it sounds better if you get your ring finger off before you hit that. So there's a lot of movement with your hand, but it's just great on that B string. That's used in the song quite a bit. So I have Tablature a little bit later, but I just want to make sure we can do that. Another chord, like I said, this is in the key of D, so we're playing a D chord. Okay, this does a very similar thing, and I'll have to put chords for Dsus also. With the D chord, we do a lot of the same things, but we're doing it on the E string. And this, we start calling them Dsus2 and Dsus4. I think we'll be doing both of those in different points, but not quite the same as on the A, not as quickly. But so on the D, we're going to play the D, and then try not to hit the E string on the way up. And then then you go into a sus, where you take your middle finger off, and in this case, it's a Dsus2. And I'll explain that in a similar fashion. Because we're playing a D chord, we're going to use the D scale as a reference. And if you go up D, E, F sharp is the third note of the D scale. That's what your middle finger is playing at, F sharp. When you lift it, you open up the E string, and E is the second note of the D scale. So you're going from an F sharp to an E. Right, so that's what's happening. So a little bit later, we'll be playing a Dsus4, where we put our pinky down. We keep the D shape because we're usually, whenever you play this, you're usually going to be going off of it fairly soon. So, not always, but quite often. So we're going to be putting our pinky down on the third fret of the high-pitched E chord, E string, at some point. Not in this particular phrase, but at some point we will be, and that's called a Dsus4, because we're taking the third note and we're replacing it with a G note. So we have D, E, F, G. That's the fourth note of the D scale. So that's called a Dsus4. All right. So those are two of the fairly common things that are happening in this song. And then we have a G chord. All right, so that's We have the D. Then we go to a G. We play the G like, I play it like this. I guess you could play it either way. And we're leaving the E kind of open. We're not really hitting it. The high E. And we're gonna make use of the third fret of the B string. We leave it open at first. We kind of hover over it with our ring finger, but we're not playing it. And then we put it down. And then we hit the E string open. So it's a strum down, two strums down, and then a strum up with the E. So you try not to hit the E string on the way down. And then and you come up without hitting anything. So it's two down strums, but on the second down strum, you put your ring finger down on the third fret of the B to get that D note. That's still considered a G chord. The G has a G, a B, and a D note in it. And so we're just a different version of G. And then you come up and hit the E. So I'm hitting the I come up twice without hitting down on those. And on one time I hit the E. The second time I try to hit the B string. And then I work my way back into the. Okay, so those. First of all, that's kind of the real official way of playing it. What we can do is make sure we understand the chords, and we can work towards those, that goal of playing it like that. What we can do initially is just do like a. So I'm just doing up and down strums. I'm hitting everything on the up and down. All right, and when you play this with a song, or actual song, playing with a video or something, when you put the capo on the 7th fret, you can make it sound just by playing it with a strum. It sounds really close. So here's a new chord. It's an E7. All right. So that's just to give you an idea. Once we get the chords down, we put a capo on, and we're that much closer to sounding just like the song without all the additional embellishments that I've been showing you. I'm showing you those, kind of giving you different levels of how to play this. So the basic way I would say is just do it up and down strum. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's like two measures of D. All right. Let me bring up the actual song. It's under tablature because we have a lot of tabs related to it. Under tablature, we have Yankee Doodle, C scale. If I keep going down, we actually have the song. Okay, so like I was saying, here comes the sound. When we see the D, we play the D, and then we see the slash, we continue playing the D. We go to a G. So it's just 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, and then go to an E7. And you can play the E7. When I play it, here's the basic way of playing E7 is with just 2 fingers. Where you have the middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, and your first finger's on the 1st fret of the G. Remember, the regular E, you also have your ring finger on there. You take your ring finger off to open up the D string. The D string gives you a 7th note of the E scale. And what we can do sometimes, especially when I play this song, is I put my pinky down to get another D note on the B string, 3rd fret. It kind of matches with everything else we're playing. So it's like a 3-fingered E7 instead. You don't have to, if you're playing the basic version, just the strumming version, you don't have to do that. It sounds good without it. I say it's all right. And then it just goes to an A7 to kind of finish off the phrase. So it's a it's all right. A7. We can get into the verse. Little darling, it's been a G long, lonely A7 with you. Repeat. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been years. All right, so that's the verse, and then we back to the chorus. Here comes the sun on D, G. Here comes the E7 sun, I say D. It's all right. Keep strumming for a little bit, and A7. So that's the verse and the chorus. And again, if you put the capo, when you get a capo on the 7th fret, it sounds really close. Of course, you got to get the right key now to sing it. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, lonely years. You could probably just kind of, when you strum it, don't do a really hard strum. Almost try to break it up even if you're not hitting the right notes. So when you try to get individualize the strings a little bit. So when I do that, I'm just kind of maybe slowing down the strum a little bit. Right. So, any questions so far? You understand all the chords we're playing. We have a D chord. Go back to a without the capo. D chord, a G chord, and an A7 chord. And at one point, we threw in an E7 chord. So if you want to practice those chords, they're all in the chord chart. And then you can use the song as an inspiration to practice more. So then we get into, we call it the bridge, where we're playing an F. When you play the F, you don't have to play the full F. You don't even have to bar. You just want to play the 3 strings, the D, the G, and the B. Don't try not to hit the E. You can even use your index finger to kind of mute it just by touching it without letting it hit the sound. And that's probably the easiest version of F you can play. So we're not playing anything but just from the 4th string down. And And then we quickly switch from that to a C. So we just take, we keep our index finger right where it is. And these other two fingers, middle and ring, can go up at the same time to the C chord. And then we go to a G chord. Using those same two fingers, we can just bring those both up, and you can take your index finger off temporarily and get to a G. And it's not, in the actual song, it's not critical to get the E string in the actual, the high E, high pitch E, because we don't even play it in the actual song. It kind of goes like this. And then you go to a D. So when we play it with a simple strum, we just will look at the E string as well. And the actual note that we're singing, sun, 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 here it comes. You go to an A7. So it's F sun, C sun, G sun, here it comes, G, A7. Sun, 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 here it comes. All right, so we're using those chords to play that. Now, to be consistent with what I showed you earlier, I'll show you how to play it, how they play it on the actual song. So what we call arpeggios, where we play the individual notes of each of these chords. We're just playing 3 of each one. We're playing from the D string to the B string on the F chord. Then we go to a C chord. We play the A string to the G. When we go to the G chord, we just play from the A to the G, and then from the E to the E and A, and we strum a D string, a D chord, and then we strum an A. There's actually a lead up to those. We actually play. Here's where the tablature helps. So this tablature is kind of a reminder of what I've showed you or talked about, where we play the D. It's not showing it quite the way it's played. It's giving you the most important notes that need to sound out. So it's if you played it just the way it is in a tablature, it would be. So it'd be really singled out as far as notes go. So you actually want to kind of be doing a strum to get those more of a strum sound. So that's why I kind of give you that slow motion of how you have to go down without hitting. And a lot of times we're hitting notes with an upstroke. Again, you can play this with the simple strums initially. All right. Now getting back to the bridge that I was going to talk about. So we get the tablature and it's on here. You want to pluck around with the notes at least. Try to see how those notes work out. And there is this fill. Now, when I had you strum through it, but you can do this fill. It's called. So that 2/4 on the can you first of all make sure you're able to see what I'm showing you. Can you see the tablature? Okay, good. So that 2/4 means you slide from 2 to 4, and I recommend doing that with your ring finger. And then you hit the B string on the 3rd fret, 2nd fret, and then E string open. You notice in this tablature the E string is played with an open string all the way through this little fill. There, I did it. So that's what's happening there is the fill. And then you kind of, you play 3, 2, O, and then 2 on the G. Those other 3 were on the B string. I want to get to the bridge that I was talking about. And that's right here. We have on the A string, we hit the A string open, and we hit the 4th fret of the A. I recommend using your 4th finger for that. And then you put it. So it's open, 4th fret of the A. It's kind of a bass run. It's a lead up to the F. And then you play the F. C, G, G again, and then try to do this. All right. That's if you wanted to play it with the actual tablature. What you can really do is a right note here. Sun, sun, sun comes. F, C, G, and G, A7. F, G, F, C, G, A7. And you do that 5 times to get through that. Actually, you play it once without singing, and then you play it 5 more times with the actual words. So actually, those chords are played 6 times in total. The rest of it is pretty much the same as what we've already played. There is one point where we, after we finish the bridge, and then you stay on the 8. And you play all the notes of the, and we kind of what we talked about when you do these suspended. So you play the A7, and you come off with the Dsus2. And the Dsus4. And on the Dsus4, you kind of come off. So it's Dsus2, it's A7 to an Dsus2 quickly, then back to an A7. And then you go to an Dsus4. You're just kind of changing quickly to an A7 in there. Down, down, down. On the up, you take it off and then back on again. And then I go to it. Then I try to accentuate the E string. And then I get a high A, which I don't expect to be able to do that. But I use my feet to reach out for the A. You could probably just take everything off and just hit that. Or quickly hit maybe 2 strings. You want to get that high pitch. So here's how it would be. You could just play it. So that's the intermediate way. But here's how you do it. And then you're back to the regular verse. All right. So that's here comes the sun.